Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Midwatch Podcast. And boy, has it been a while since I've said that. I just want to start off by saying I apologize for the about 2-year hiatus I have taken from this podcast. It seemed to be really taking off. We were getting about 500 listens, downloads an episode, and then I completely stopped. So I just want to apologize for that. And, sea duty just really got in the way of being able to have any kind of free time to do anything. But my promise is from here on out, we're going to try to get this podcast back up and running. I want to bring you guys the best stories, the best information I possibly can in regards to the military. And on today's episode, we had Joshua Elliott on. I served with him on the current ship I'm on. He's been out of the Navy for a little over a year now. And, we talked about a lot of things. We just talked about military, obviously. We talked about the Naval Academy, which he's a graduate of. We talked about, being a naval officer, what it means, what you do, how do you become one. And we touched on a lot of information throughout this podcast. So I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did filming it. What are you doing? How you been?
I'm doing pretty good overall. I got a couple different things in the works, but I want to compliment on you on your chair, man. That is super legit looking.
Oh, thank you. It's like a gaming chair. And it's like, this is like my favorite esports team. It's like their personal chair.
Okay.
Yeah,
my sister-in-law, she's actually a pro on Twitch.
Oh, really? I guarantee she probably has something like this then. It's like a staple in like the gaming community.
It's a pretty standard chair. Her computer's pretty cool though. It's a big old cone.
It like reclines.
Jeez. How's everything going with you?
Good. I leave in exactly a month. I'm off the old DDG 117.
Okay.
Heading to Texas, San Antonio.
Okay.
For instructor duty. So I'm excited about that. We just sold this house. It actually sold so fast that we have to rent it from the people for a month.
Dang.
And then the house buying process out there is not going very well, just because the market, it's just, you're getting outbidded like 10, 20, 30,000 over asking price. Like, it's nuts.
Where in Texas?
San Antonio.
Do you, well, I'm guessing you already have a realtor out there.
Yeah, we're going through the Homes for Heroes program.
Okay.
So they like assign you a realtor and then you get like money back at closing and stuff. We did it.
If you don't like them, let me know, because I know a guy out in San Antonio.
Okay. Yeah, this week we're just trying to find like new construction, just because it's easier. Like, I'm not bidding against anyone. So we're gonna see how that goes, see if we can find, because there's tons of new construction out there. The city's like expanding. It's like,
well, yeah, plus new construction worked really well for you there, because I bet you guys made a killing.
Yeah, we did fairly well. And you get to pick what your house looks like, get to paint, it's a lot nicer. And then a lot of times, like for this house and a lot of the builders out there, they pay all of closing costs too. It's like part of like their deal. So we're going to see how that goes. It's really hard to find a good school district out there too. That's like the finding like a house that we want in our price range in a good school district.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those three metrics are like impossible to find. So,
okay.
But we think we found an area that we like. It's the second best school district in San Antonio. So, and it's right next to a few bases. So it's right next to the base. So it's like a 20-minute commute for me. So it's not too bad.
Is base housing an option so you don't pigeonhole yourself?
No, it's like worse than Mayport. Oh. Yeah, it's terrible. And it's tiny. Like, it's only like the biggest one they have is like 1,250 square feet.
Oh,
and
wow.
The house we're in now is 3,000 square feet. So
yeah,
that'd be a big downsize. But
jeez.
Yep. So I do have like a few things I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, let's go.
Just because the audience that does watch the podcast, sometimes they're looking to get in, stuff like that. So I just kind of want to hit on like a few marks of like your career, obviously. And then I definitely want to get into like what you're doing now. But I have, as you know, right, in the military, we have our 11 general orders. But before I like to start podcast to kind of get the brain going, I have the 11 general questions for you.
Let's go.
Just say the first thing that comes to your mind, 1-2 word answer. It's just going to kind of be like a rapid session of questions.
Let's do it.
All right. So number one, who's your favorite superhero?
Spider-Man.
All right. Who would win in a fight, Chuck Norris or Bruce Lee?
Bruce Lee.
If you could raise one person from the dead and have a walk with them in the modern world, who would it be?
Wow. First thing that came up was my grandpa. So I guess my grandpa.
Okay. What was your first car ever?
Saturn SC2,
What year?
1997.
If you could have dinner with one person, right, alive or dead, who would it be?
Shoot. Maybe Confucius or Lao Tzu.
Okay. If you could be any movie character in real life, who would it be?
Oh, crap. Look, man, I don't really watch movies. Whoever's really ripped and jacked and like 6'4".
Any character the Rock plays. Got it.
There you go.
What's your favorite chick flick?
Once again, I don't watch a lot of movies, so
All right, fair enough.
yeah,
Pick one: honor, courage, or commitment.
I'd say honor.
If you had all the jobs paid the same, I'm sorry, if all the jobs paid the same, what would you do?
What I'm in the process of doing right now.
Okay. I'm assuming you can't expand on that.
I can later.
Oh, okay. If you were in an airport and the airline gave you one free ticket, where would you go?
I'd go back to China.
And one item on your bucket list.
Crap, man. I don't really have a bucket list. Like I'm living life pretty good right now.
All right. One thing you want to do in the next 10 years.
One thing I want to do in the next 10 years, I want to travel the world more extensively.
Okay. All right. So, obviously, I mean, I know your background, right? Some people who are watching may, but obviously, we met on Paul Ignatius, the ship that we were both stationed on. Obviously, you were one of the junior officers, the navigator on board. But what kind of I like to normally start the podcast like you're a senior in high school. I'm in math class next to you. Who are you?
So in high school, this is describing all the military experience, or
Well, I kind of like to start here and then kind of what led you to the Navy
okay.
or to the academy, for your.
So senior in high school, I was just an extremely goofy kid. I was part of the rowing team. We all swam just because I was by far the slowest swimmer there. And when I say the slowest, I mean literally it was all the guys, well, and some girls, then all the girls, and then it was Josh Elliott. I was the slowest guy, and they literally just put me into places where there weren't enough people just to get points on the board, knowing that by me going so slow, it'd also give other people time to rest.
Did you know you wanted to like go to the academy while you're in high school? Is that something that you were actively working towards, or?
I did. So I knew I wanted to go there, and I felt like that was the place to be. I applied and got rejected. So I applied again and got rejected again. And then the third time I applied, I also enlisted to go nuke.
Okay.
And the day I was supposed to ship out, my dad told me to call the academy and let them know I was enlisting. And I did. And on the spot, the academy canceled my orders and issued me acceptance.
Oh, wow. So what is that? How many times can you apply? Like, is it once a year? So
it's once a year until you're 23.
Okay. So you didn't go into your 20, I guess, if you graduate.
Yep.
Okay. What's that process like? Is it like what all, I mean, you don't need to go too in depth. Like what all do you need to do in order to like what's part of the package to apply to the academy?
So any academy you go to, they look at the whole person concept. And that's really important because, for example, I had extremely good grades. However, I didn't have a lot of life challenges. So some people who got accepted the first few years that I didn't, they went through hell growing up. Okay. Whereas I had a pretty standard upbringing in the Midwest and then moving to Florida. So first off, whoever's listening to this, if you're interested in an academy, if you don't have the best grades, don't let that be a deterring factor. So you have the grades, you do an initial application. They send you through another application process. You have to get either a congressman or a senator's nod of approval. That's a lot less intimidating than it sounds because they're allowed 10 recommendations a year,
Okay.
and it's their staff, and that's all they do. So after you do that, you take a physical fitness exam, and then you just wait, really.
And how do you go about doing like that Congress? Because that's actually something I specifically wanted to ask you about. Do you like write a letter to them saying like, hey, this is my story. I'm wanting to go to the Naval Academy. Like, would appreciate a letter of recommendation from you. And then is it
Pretty
kind of
much.
something like that?
So now keep in mind, this was over 10 years ago now, but
True.
when I did it, it was like an application package in itself.
To apply for like that letter from that congressman.
Yes. And then if you were accepted for an interview, then you went out to their designated place, you got interviewed, and then they let you know within a month.
Okay. I actually, I mean, besides talking to you about it, really, I really don't know much about the Academy, but I watched that movie. I think it's called Academy with like Tyrese Gibson in it.
Oh, Annapolis.
Or I'm sorry, Annapolis. That's it.
Yeah.
Like how like the whole like plebe thing and all that, is that like pretty like accurate in some shape or form or not?
Nothing about that movie is accurate.
Okay.
No, but being a plebe, it's interesting because you you don't have hands, you have paws. When you're not allowed to walk throughout the hallways, you have to. It's called chop. You got to run through them. It has to be in the center. You got to do something called square your corners, which is essentially there's these metal plates in every single area that there's like an intersection in the halls of Bancroft, and you go and you do a sharp 90-degree turn. And when you turn, you got to like go Army sir, or no, go Navy sir, beat Army sir, stuff like that. You're not allowed media for your entire first year. So no music, no movies, no TV.
Oh wow.
While you're on premises, your doors are always cracked open at 90 degrees. You're not allowed in bed before, I think it was 9 o'clock. I hear things have relaxed a little bit ever since I left. But when I was going through, that's what plebe year was. And then every single Friday, you had something called a professional knowledge exam, where you had this book full of prono, and you would go through a different topic. And what that was doing was indoctrinating you into the Navy and the Marine Corps to help you figure out what kind of community you want to go into.
Gotcha. That's something that like, I mean, I feel like it's common knowledge, but not many people know that like the Marines also go to the Naval Academy, right? Like the Marine officers.
Yep.
So is it something, did you enjoy your time there? I mean, did you, um, yeah, I guess, did you enjoy your time in the Academy?
So I did and I didn't. The first year did not too much care for it during plebe year because I had to go through a process of learning humility, really. Because here I was, 20 years old, and I was taking orders from people my same age.
Right.
And I looked at them, I was like, who the heck are you? We're the same age. We graduated high school the same time. Who are you to tell me what to do? And besides, like, what you're telling me is baloney. It's
Right.
bull crap, like not the right order. And you're at 10, 11 years now?
It'll be 10. Yeah.
10?
Almost 10.
Okay. I mean, same thing. A new JO comes up, younger than you. You have
Right.
more experience, give you an order, and you're like, that's actually not the right thing. But I had to learn humility through that. And as soon as I started to learn that and a greater respect for others, that's when I started to enjoy the process more.
Okay. Sorry, my phone's just ringing. Uh, so after the Academy and like senior year, like, so what is like that big fancy ceremony, right? Where like the ship picking or where you like pick the ship you go to? Is that like a
Ship
real
selection night.
or ship selection? I'm sorry.
Yep.
What is that like based on merit, like the order they go in, or?
So that's only for those who decide to go surface warfare.
Okay.
So there's a night before that where you find out what you're going. And so those who find out they're going Marine Corps, those who are going Navy, and then for Marine Corps, they find out their the equivalent of their MOS later. Mm-hmm. But for the Navy, you find out which community you've been accepted into. Now, I initially tried to go Intel, and I made it in the top 4 of 100 applicants, and there was only 2 spots available.
Oh, wow.
So when I found out I was going SWO, I was not happy. Not at all. But it ended up being the best thing that could have happened. So you have that. And then going to ship selection night, it's based on your order of merit within your entire class.
Okay.
And the higher up you are, all the ships are on a big old board, all their names, and you get to choose where you want to go.
So were you able to get what you wanted?
Yes, I got my first choice.
So after the academy, what is life like after that? Like, I mean, I know the graduation itself is a pretty big deal. Obviously, normally some kind of like the president or something normally speaks, right? Who spoke at your graduation?
It was at the time Vice President Biden.
Okay. And like, kind of, do you get like this like time off after that, or like
So you get
summer
a
break,
month,
or
you get a month of something called basket leave.
okay, that's just
And
like
basket leave
regular
is
leave.
30 days of free leave. And you get to do what you want, get your affairs in order before you head out and do your thing with whichever community you go into. And for me, it was 30 days of leave, and then I deployed.
Oh wow! So did you go right to the ship after that?
I did.
Okay.
Well, I did my 30 days of leave, and then I met my ship in Spain.
Okay. And I forget what ship you're on. What was your first ship you did?
First one was Iwo Jima.
Okay. So what was that like? Like, you went from, I mean, kind of a college student slash like military, right, at the academy,
Yeah.
and then like right into the middle of a deployment. Like, what was that like for you?
It was really hard. I met them at the tail end of their deployment, so everyone was pretty bitter. They had been extended because of some stuff going on, and they were already supposed to be home. No one wanted to be there. No one wanted to train. And here, I think it was like 5 fresh ensigns eager to learn showed up. And I remember, oh my goodness. So my buddy Mark Flynn and I, actually as well on the ship. So he and I were on Paul Ignatius as well as Iwo Jima. But we sat down at a lunch table, and it was literally like something you'd seen in a high school movie where every single person around us picked up their trays and went somewhere else.
That's funny. Just because you're like, look at these happy people.
Yeah.
So what was your job on the Evo?
I was the assistant to the electrical officer.
Okay. And you don't get to pick that either, right? You just kind of, as you get there, they kind of tell you what you're going to be.
Yep. I showed up and they're like, you're going to engineering. So I said, okay.
Here I am.
Now that was it.
Now, as like a junior officer, right? We kind of mentioned it earlier. You're fairly young, right? Like early 20s, but yet you kind of get thrown into this leadership position, right?
Yep.
And junior enlisted guys, right? No matter what kind of officer you are, you're kind of intimidated by it, right? And then you're kind of in this in between part between them and like the chiefs who are there to train you. Like, what is like that whole dynamic? Like, what is that like? And is that something that they prepare you for, like in the academy or officer training, or
So yes and no. So all plebes have to call their upperclassmen sir or ma'am. And I thought it was extremely weird at first getting called sir. I hated it. But after 3 years at the academy, when I showed up to the ship, it was a normal thing. Let's see. Being on ships was normal as well from the academy, because we had something called YPs, which were, small ships in comparison. Mm-hmm. And we also spent summers at sea as well. However, your chief, whoever the chief is, makes a world of difference. I was blessed in the fact that my chief, her name was EMC Bickle. She's in Japan right now. She's a lieutenant junior grade now, actually. Oh, wow. But she was on fire. And I was told, essentially, to be on her hip and to learn for the entire first year. So that's what I did. Now, she worked 16 hours a day, which meant I worked 16 hours a day. But I was constantly learning from her, seeing how she handled situations. seeing what sailors were trying to do to pull the wool over their eyes, because
Right.
that does happen.
Of course.
Yeah. I don't blame junior sailors for doing that either. But the point is, it depends on who your chief is. For me, for the first year, I didn't really feel like an officer. I felt more so like I was a parrot and everything, and just learning from a fire hose.
Okay.
I Even though we knew about standard commands at the academy, it's a whole new beast when you're at the helm or commanding somebody at the helm of an 844-foot vessel.
Right.
So it's weird.
Was I mean, besides your chief, right? And that's a good point. Obviously, it's a huge factor of who your chief is, right? Especially as your first command of a JO, because that's kind of where you're going to create your foundation, right?
Yep. And your reputation.
And your reputation. Is there any other places that you um, pulled like leadership fundamentals from? I mean, you're obviously a pretty intellectual guy, right? So I know you're always in books and podcasts, stuff like that. Is there any other place that you kind of pulled, theories of leadership from to kind of implement as a JO, or was it really just the Chiefs mess?
It was really the Chiefs mess. Because here's the thing, books are great. I love books. I've got a podcast that is dedicated just to books. But here's the thing. You can talk about theories all day long, but once you go out in the fire,
Right.
guess what? You'll see what works and what does not. I forget who it is that said it, but everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, and it's so true.
Right.
And the thing is, being engineering for my first ship, I was with LDOs, commander LDOs, meaning they've been in for 30, 35 years, and they were in the Navy when a lot of things were okay that are not okay anymore. That was the environment. And I had to learn real quick how to talk to different people. Because guess what? In the Navy, most people that are just starting out, actually, that's not fair to say. There are a fair amount of people who did not have as kind of an upbringing as I did.
Right.
And the reason they're in the Navy is because they want to break free from that environment and create a new future for themselves. And I admire and I respect that. However, until I was around other people, I didn't know how to speak their language in a way, because everybody speaks a different language.
Right. Especially, on a bigger ship like that. Like, how many people did you have in your division?
I had 4 divisions under me. Each one had about 10 people. So total about 43, 44.
40 different walks of life and different personalities that you had to kind of adapt to and because obviously you can't treat everyone differently, or I'm sorry, you can't treat everyone the same, right? You kind of have to base it off of their personality, their upbringing, right? Something might be a big deal to one person, but not a big deal to another, right? And I can imagine trying to learn your job, right? Be a junior officer, lead all these sailors, and learn, how to deal with all these different sailors. It's a pretty intense job to do on such a person who's only in their early 20s.
It is. And here's the thing. When you talk with somebody, you both know. So let's say I'm back to being Ensign Elliott and I'm with the electrical division. Whoever I was talking with, the most junior of the junior sailors, they knew more about the topic than I did. And we both knew it. And that also comes back down to the humility aspect. So officers, I've seen 2 different roads take place. Some say, look, I don't know what's going on here. Please show me. Mm-hmm. And others pretend that they know exactly what's going on. And they seem haughty and arrogant. They seem prideful. And those are the officers who I saw not really make it.
Right. That's a pretty weird, dichotomy, I guess would be the correct word to use, that is pretty much unique to the military, right? Like, even though you're, as a junior officer, right, you're a junior officer, but yet you still get thrown into this, right off the bat, you're in leadership, right? Any other place you work, you start at the bottom and kind of work your way up. Once you're in a position of leadership, you've most likely done most of the jobs that you're responsible for, right? And in like, junior officer cases, you're thrown into this leadership, but everyone under you has most likely been in the Navy longer than you and are the subject
Absolutely.
matter experts on the thing that you're making like the decisions for, right? So, I mean, obviously it works. We've been doing it for, a couple hundred years, but it's definitely like a weird I guess dichotomy, right? Would be the right word or situation that we put junior officers in.
It is, but like you said, it works. Drink it through a fire hose, and then after a while, you realize at the end of the day, the job of an officer, and I've failed at this numerous times. I've been out for a year, and I can think about each individual person that I've had charge of, and I can think of an instant that I failed them. Um, but here's the thing: they are the experts there. Like you are the expert in medical care. I just needed to know how to make sure that your career was taken care of, that you're going in the right place, and that mentally you were in an okay place.
Right.
And then I needed to know just enough to be able to tell my boss if something were going wrong, the plan to fix it, the estimated time, what potential roadblocks there are, and what the plan is to go over those roadblocks if necessary.
Right. So, after the EWO, you obviously transferred to the Pollock Nations. How much say do you guys have in that? Like, do you have say on your second tour what job you do? Do you at least get to be like, hey, I would like to do this job, right? Obviously, you came to the Pollock Nations as the navigator. How did that transition from the EWO to the Pollock Nations happen?
So it's a process called slating. You have so there's like platform, location, and job title.
Okay.
And what you do is you rank down where you would like to go, and then your preference. So like, location is number one, the most important thing to me. So then if you said that, then they'd be like, okay, no matter what, he wants to go to Japan. He doesn't care what it is, what the job is. He just wants to go to Japan. Cool. And they will try to do that to the best of their ability. However, from the detailer's perspective, sometimes it works, sometimes it does not.
Right.
But we just put in our preferences and we go from there. For
So,
me, I speak Mandarin Chinese. I wanted to go to Japan. That didn't happen.
did you want to be a navigator?
I did.
And what is so? I know like some JO positions you don't necessarily need to go to school. Obviously, I think Nav is probably one of the ones that you have to go to the school right prior to
You do.
filling that billet. Um, well, how long is that school?
When I went through, it was only 33 days, but
Okay,
it was essentially sunrise to past sunset, 33 days.
and that's like a pretty, at least. I mean, my only experience of the surface navy is a destroyer, right? I've never been on an amphib or anything like that, but I feel like navigator is like one of those weird, especially like at least in our department, you were like department head, but you weren't a department head. Like is it like like that by design, or is that just because of the situation of like the small department that we had on the destroyer?
So for destroyers, that's the old traditional way of doing things. What they would do is they try to find, from what I've been told, is they would find somebody who is, let's just say, up and coming or who has a lot of potential in the Navy. Like, okay, cool, navigator. Let's let him try or her try to be a department head while they still have safety nets around them.
Okay,
That way, when they actually do go become department head, they have an idea of what is going on and they'll be able to excel even more.
got you. Because I mean, that's a fairly important job, right? As navigator, like you're in charge of navigating the ship. And given that job to someone that's it's only their second ship in the Navy, that's a pretty uh prestigious thing, I would say, to even be able to do that, right?
It is, but that's when trust comes into play. So I had an entire team of quartermasters. I had one QMC, a couple QM1s,
Mm.
and then a couple QM2s and some new quartermasters. But the thing is, it doesn't matter what somebody's age is as long as I can trust them to call me and say, hey, there's a bright light that is coming right at us. Can you please come up here?
Right. So, pre-com, right? That was definitely a unique situation that we all experienced together. Um, and as a JO, like how was that experience for you? Like looking back?
Looking back, there are so many things I wish I could do differently. I don't. Here's the thing. I don't know what your guys' perspective are. At the time, I did my best,
Hmm.
and if you knew better, you would have done better.
Right.
However, if I could go back, there were many things I would do differently in regards to mindset and attitude. Because part of the pre-com process, it's called strenuous duty for a reason. It's hard,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Many of us spent months away from our families. I know that you spent far, far too long away from your wife and kids. And the truth is, a lot of us, human nature is when we feel kind of like caged in a box that we're not living up to our expectations, what we do is we project it on other people. And usually that's leadership.
Hmm.
Whereas in actuality, happiness is a choice. And we could choose to be happy. Yes, frustrating events occur, but we could have said, hey, yes, that happened. Let it go. Zero control over it. We could let our blood pressure rise, or we could just chill out. So I think I steered away from your question.
It's fine. I mean, I would say like, I mean, you're still talked to about this like to this day on that boat as far as being like one of the best JOs on board. And you definitely like, it was shitty for me to be away from my family so long, but you were like definitely super inspirational and like one of the reasons like I got through it fairly easily. So I don't know if like you were talking about yourself when you said that, you feel like you could have done better or whatnot. I mean, I guess we can always do better no matter what, but I think you did one hell of a job, not just for myself, but I mean, like I said, you're still talked to this day on board that ship about being like one of the best JOs.
No, I really appreciate that. I was definitely talking about myself because everybody has had events where I could have stepped up a little bit more and tried to push them a little bit more. But at the end of the day, you and I know how tough the environment was. And to the listeners out there, do not mistake what I'm saying as regret. I have zero regrets. I did the best I could. However, if you would have known better, you would have done better. And a mark of growth and personal development is getting better and looking back and seeing, okay, if I were in that situation again, I would have done this and this, which is
Right.
good because if you talk with people who are going through those circumstances, then you can help lead them into areas of success that you wish that you had when you were their age.
Right. Yeah. If it's, if you never lose, you're never gonna know how to get better. Right. It's,
Absolutely.
so it's, if you're hitting the mark every time, you're never gonna know that, you're not doing a good job. You always got to mess up, fall, right? And then get back up and know not to trip over that stick again, right? It's all, like you said,
Yeah,
it's
the
all
path
part
to
of.
success, it's filled with failure,
Exactly.
and that's okay.
Um, so what made you, I don't know how deep you want to get into this, right? But like I said, like you had a really good reputation. Um, y- you really cared about the enlisted sailor, which was a very good aspect, uh,
Mhm.
and like reputation that you had pretty much amongst the crew, which sometimes is hard to find up in the wardroom. What led you, right? And you're obviously really good at your job. What led you to get out? And again, I don't know how deep you want to get into that, but
No, that's a fair question. I gave up a lot to leave. Um, Record wise, I was constantly number one. I had the hardest jobs and I did extremely well. But it came from being at the right place at the right time. Like it just so happened I was the only white guy who spoke Mandarin Chinese when the first time in history a bunch of Chinese ships came to the East Coast. Right place, right time. And it just went from there. And caring about sailors, that's the biggest thing. The reason I got out was because I, well, there was some pretty messed up family stuff going on up north,
Mhm.
and my niece wasn't being taken care of. And there was a possibility that I would, have custody of her. And after one night where I found out that she was in the ER again and would have a permanent scar in her forehead because her dad didn't take care of her, that's when I was essentially in tears, and I called up Millington, Tennessee. I said, "Hey, I will do literally whatever job you want, whatever job. I don't care if it's in charge of janitors, flag eight, like literally anything. Just get me up to Annapolis as soon as possible. But no matter what, I'm going to be in Annapolis. My time is coming up in a few months, or actually, it was like 8-9 months. My time's coming up. So I'm either going to resign and go up there, or if you can guarantee me a spot and go up there, I'll go up there. I said, I'm willing to wait here a few more months until the ship goes to Mayport, but I really need to get up there. And their response was, if you sign for department head, we'll consider it. And I said, if you're going to treat me like that, I will no longer have anything to, well, number one, I won't sign. Mm-hmm. I will submit my resignation. And the way it worked, because I never took leave, I've been working since I was 10. I've always been working. So I had so much leave built up. And I explained this to them as like the time I'd leave the ship would be very similar to when you would rotate me out. So that was their choice. I was bitter about it for a little bit. I tried to hide that from all the sailors. But after a while, I was like, you know what? This is going to be for my good for some reason. I let it go. And it has been. And I'm very grateful to the Navy for telling me no, because it's led to a whole new path.
That's good. You know, I would have really liked to serve under Captain Elliott one day, but I'm, I'm glad, obviously, everything worked out for the best for you.
I appreciate that.
I do miss coming up to your stateroom, bugging you about everything under the sun. Walking into your little Zen zone you had up there, with your tea and your incense and stuff. I used to love going up there.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of that was actually legal. The captain let me get away with a lot.
But that was one of the best aspects, about you. Especially being one of your sailors, right? Was just I would come up and talk to you, right? And you're 4 or 5 years younger than me, right? And you're definitely someone like I looked up to, and like I would go to you for advice like all the time, like financial advice, life advice, podcast advice. Just anytime I had an idea of like, let me go bounce it off Nav and see what he thinks about it. So I definitely miss having that resource on board. Selfishly, I'm sad that you're gone for those reasons, but
hey, in a month, I hope in Texas, you're just off the charts in heaven.
Yeah, that's my goal. I really can't wait to get out there and get some shore duty time and not worry about duty and underway and all of the fun stuff that comes with sea duty.
Yeah. You deserve it.
Definitely, kind of as you mentioned, pre-com is definitely an arduous duty. Definitely deserves that title, but I know personally, I will probably never be able to top this command ever again. For the rest of my career, this would by far be the best command I've ever been to, professional achievement wise. And definitely a big part of that was, I'm going to thank you for that, right? Through getting me through Pascagoula, and, obviously you were a big part of getting me mapped to second. So, I'll forever be in debt to you for that. And definitely formed a lifelong friendship that is definitely worth having. So,
Thank you.
So life after the Navy, right? Did you have a plan, right? Because it kind of, you said you only had a few months left, and you kind of didn't have that decision made yet if you were going to stay in or not, if they were going to get you to Millington or not. Like, when did you kind of start planning life after the Navy? Like, what was going to be for you?
Oh, so because of COVID, the plans went to absolute garbage.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so I was planning on going back to China for several months. I was going to go to Hangzhou, where there's a lot of tea plantations. And so I was going to go there, get my Mandarin back up, make friendships with a bunch of tea farmers, Then I was going to come back to the States, start up my cafe, and go from there. What actually happened was got here 2 weeks later, the entire world shut down. And being that Hangzhou was in China and COVID started in China, I
Right.
didn't go to China. But it was at that point where I was forced to slow down. Like I said, I've been working since I was 10. And at that point, I was 28. And so I was forced to slow down and just look around and be like, okay, what is it that I actually want? It was then that I realized I don't want to work my tail off all the time. I don't want to have to do that. That's not fun. That's what we did in the Navy, and it's not sustainable for long life. It's just it's not good for the body. Rejuvenation and rest is critical. So at that moment, I said, okay, I'm going to transform nautical teas from the cafe scene into online sales. And I realized I actually shut down the LLC for nautical teas yesterday because I realized, like, look, having a passion for something is amazing, but just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean that it has to become a business.
Right.
And I realized that when I started getting a lot of orders, and I was like, darn, another order came in. I got to fill this now. That's not a good sign if you want a successful company.
Right. It's when your passion becomes a job. It's not always the best thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. I definitely experienced that, like with the woodworking stuff. Like same thing. Like it was no longer just going in my garage, building what I wanted to build, getting my mind off the day. It was going in the garage, fulfilling orders, necessarily not building things I wanted to build, but I had to because it's what the customer wanted. So definitely, like I understand that uh, passion becoming your passion becoming a profession is not always the best thing because then it's no longer your passion.
And a passion is critical, especially if you have a job that drains you.
Right. Because it's
Because
your
everything in life is either a drainer or an adder.
right.
It's either recharging you or taking energy away.
Right. So if it becomes your job, it's no longer your escape.
Nope.
So that's something that that you kind of came to terms with, right? And you made that decision on your own that you wanted to kind of step away from the tea as as a business.
Yeah. So here's the point of just slowing down and asking yourself questions. The reason I love tea is because it promotes something called an alpha wave in your brain. It causes you to slow down, to think more in depth. Your brain is saying, I'm not in danger. I love the community aspect of it. So, what I'm prepping for are retreats. I'm closing on a piece of property. It's a little over 12 acres, sandwiched in between DC and BWI.
Nice.
Yeah, it's got horses on it right now. There's a creek running through. There's several acres of forest, rolling hills. It's this beautiful property. I'm turning it into retreats for community. We're going to have tea. It's going to be customized to whatever the person in their life needs. And my wife, she is extremely good with helping people map out where they want to go in life and with their business. And actually, most of her clients are 40-plus-year-old women who are looking to her. She's in her 20s for guidance in that. So we're going to bring all these people in, customize retreats for them, and help them to kind of recenter, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And that's something that definitely in this modern world, a lot of people need, right? We get caught up in all of our screens and our distractions and just constant flow of information, right? And we get lost in our own lives. So that's awesome. That's a really good idea. And that's definitely I'm excited to hear that. So are you gonna build stuff like on the property, like cabins and stuff like that? Is it gonna be like overnight retreats or
That'll eventually be an option. So there's a 2-story barn there. We're going to convert the second story into a loft. It'll be great for a conference room. Talking about maybe bringing tiny homes there.
Oh,
a few tiny homes circling around, but like a little campfire in the middle. But there are other things we are going to build. Like we're going to have a little vineyard there, like a Japanese tea gazebo overlooking the pond. Just different things to promote a relaxed feeling.
That's awesome. Good for you, sir. Um, And your podcast, right? Definitely want to end on that. It's something that I've been really diving in like the financial world, right? So I try to tend to listen to a lot of like financial podcasts on my drives to work every day. Um,
Okay.
but sometimes like if a podcast finished and I'm like 15 minutes from the gate, like I'll throw one of yours on. Um, and it's such a unique thing. Like I've never really seen it, right? Just 10, 15-minute segments of it's like audible cliff notes.
Hmm.
Kind of what inspired you to do it that way, right? Because normally traditionally podcasts, the best thing of it is it could be long form like this, a conversation. So it kind of made you take that route that you did.
Oh boy. So the complete honest answer is out of 100% selfish reasons. Whenever you do something, you have to ask yourself, like, what does success mean to me? What does it
Mhm.
look like if I win? And something I always did was I'd go through books and I'd create notes from them because I realized I learned better that way. And reading books a lot of times is not the answer. You got to implement it. You have to take action on the information there.
Right.
And sometimes you got to read it and say, this information is bogus. I'm not going to do that. But that's for each individual person to decide for themselves. So for me, I was doing the notes anyways. And I was like, okay, what would be the best way to learn this information? And the answer is, okay, I read it, learn it once, take notes, learn it twice, and then I teach it. I learn it 3 times.
Right.
So like, all right, so what is one of the most cost-effective ways to do this? It's like, oh, mind your helm. I'll just create a podcast where I take the best books and I break them down into small bite-sized pieces, and then I have action steps that they can implement today in
Mhm.
order to help change their lives.
Do you try to not put your own personal like spin on what you're reading? Are you trying to just teach the lessons as they're written, or do you kind of take the lessons that you're getting out of the books and kind of putting your own personal spin on them? You know what I'm
My
trying to.
personal spin is part of everything. So one of my concerns was I didn't want to get sued for
Right.
copyright infringement. Now I know that there's some called the fair use law, but when I was going through this, was like, okay, if you're going to teach something, it has to be in your own words. And I wanted to try to break it down simply.
Mhm.
And I knew that if I did that, it would reinforce it in my mind. And then from there, the action items, 90% of them I create myself because I look through the material and I say, okay, of these, what would actually help someone out if they do?
Okay.
And a rule I have for the action items is I will not have an action item unless I'm willing to do it for myself. So this recent book, Stop Self Sabotage, by Dr. Judy Ho, I was really hesitant to go through the action items. So I made sure I slowed down and I did every single one because I thought they sounded weird. I was like, I know this would be effective. Sounds weird. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. And the power from it was absolutely extraordinary.
And I think
But
that's important too. Like the old term, practice what you preach.
yeah,
It's good that um and I think that helps you talk about those things, right? If you've actually done them and experienced them, and right, it's a lot easier to kind of put them out there. So that's I really appreciate that, especially someone like me. Like I have stacks of books that like, oh, I'm like, I'm gonna read this book, I'm gonna read this book, I'm gonna read this book, right? And it's just I can't read. Like it's just not right. I can read. It's just not how I grasp information, right? Like
yeah.
it's just not how my brain is wired. So like your podcast has, even though a lot of the books I haven't even heard of, um, but it definitely helps me. I pull so much from them, just because it's cliff notes, right? And that's how I learn, right? Just tell me the point of this paragraph in a sentence, right? I don't want to read the whole
Mhm.
paragraph. Just give me one sentence of what it's telling me. So and I'm sure I'm not the only person out there like that. So, your podcast is definitely and I feel like it's very unique, right? I haven't seen many podcasts like it. So, I hope you nothing but success with that.
Do you have any recommendations for improvement?
Um, I would say again, selfishly, right? Like most of the books you do is seem to be all kind of like self-help leadership, right?
Hmm.
Maybe branch into like other books like like I mean I know you used to always teach like finance and stuff like that on board the ship. I still use that PowerPoint you sent me freaking 3 years ago.
Oh
um
man.
I actually have it right here in my, we have like a family finance binder, and it's in there. So I would maybe just say maybe broaden different types of different subject books, stuff like that. um to I mean, maybe broaden your, to draw more audience to your podcast, right?
Hmm.
To help you out that way. But other than that, I think it's amazing how you do it. I really, and it's extremely well scripted. Like, do you write all that out before you read it, or like before
Yep.
you record it? Because it's just like your delivery is just, it's so like there's no filler words, there's no right. That's my biggest thing is I say every 10 seconds. But it's like it's just so well delivered. It's short, it's sweet, like it, and most importantly, like you can tell by listening to it that you care about the material that you're putting out. And I think that's super important as far as being a listener. Like you're not just doing it to do it. Like you truly believe in the stuff that you're putting out in those podcasts. So I think the fact that it's so organic um and so much of you is in those words, that alone I think makes it attractive to people as far as, growing an audience.
I appreciate that coming from you, because I know you'd tell me it was garbage if you thought so.
Absolutely, sir. It's just it's definitely unique, and that's, the way that podcasts have blown up, right? It's really hard to gain traction, right? uh and I'm sure obviously that's probably not your main goal with it, is to, to earn from it financially. But the fact that it's so unique is definitely going to help you towards that road, I believe. It's not just like any other podcast out there. It's definitely has its own unique twist to it.
Do you mind if I tell you what my main goal for that is going to be in the future and just see your ideas on it?
Absolutely.
So the goal is it's going to be something called a lead magnet. So given all this content for free, I want it always to be for free and provide value to people that they could change their lives. But if they have more of a budget, that they know about the retreat center
Mm-hmm.
and that they'd be willing to come up. Because number one goal is to have that area that we're about to close on, build it out. They go there and really have a personal development retreat. And then way down the road, well, I say way down, but in 10 years, I want to buy an island and build that up as a retreat center as well. Have that be another location.
I mean, absolutely. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. And the fact that, again, like I mentioned before, like there's the way that you put together that podcast, you can tell that there's no motive behind it, right? Like I don't feel like you're selling me things. And even if you did put plugs in there or whatever for your retreat, just like the organicness of like your intent with that, I don't feel like that would be looked bad upon at all, And I think it would definitely, people would not mind um coming to like your retreats, right? And just because the fact you're, like you said, giving all that information for free, I just, there's no motive in your personality, and I think that's very attractive to people, right? So I don't think that would be looked bad upon, that you're like, hey, here's this free podcast, if you want more, come on down to our retreat for X amount of, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So I think just you're a genuine person, and I think that goes a long way, especially nowadays when 99% of the time people have motives, financial motives behind the things that they do. So I'd say keep being you, sir, or Josh, rather.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
um. So, anything else you want? I mean, I think we hit a ton of topics, and this is definitely. I know
Oh,
I. Oh,
1 second. Sorry.
uh-huh.
Okay.
This podcast got put on hold for almost 2 years, obviously because sea duty got in the way. But this is
Yep.
this is the first one back, and I appreciate your time, obviously, and this is going to be a good podcast to kind of relaunch the midwatch from here on out. Going back to shore duty, gonna have a lot more time to do it, and obviously, I would definitely like to have you back on and hear more about this retreat once you kind of get things going.
I appreciate it. What can I best do to serve your audience?
Um, like I said, a lot of my audience is I want to kind of go into the military, you know, deppers and people thinking about joining the military. So I just want to just your perspective that you gave, kind of just information, right? And it's good information. It's like stuff that you actually went through. So I think the stuff that you shared about the academy and all that was great for my
Mm-hmm.
audience. And I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of like where the military mindset is right now. And I just want people to come in with a different mindset than I see a lot of people coming in now. So that's kind of my goal. Don't want to
Sure.
dig too deep into that, but I'm sure you can kind of figure out where I'm going with that. Um,
I can, and that's a noble goal.
so um, yeah, that's kind of my goal with this podcast, and uh, I think what you did was great. That with the information that you shared.
I appreciate that. Would it be okay with you if I made a couple recommendations for you personally?
Please.
Okay, so John Lee Dumas, are you familiar with EO on Fire?
Mm.
Fire Nation, Entrepreneur on Fire. So John Lee Dumas was an Army officer. He was one of the first to get deployed to Afghanistan. And he got out. He hated life. He was going through PTSD. At 32, he started Fire Nation, Entrepreneurs on Fire. He's 40 years old now. He has close to 100 million downloads. Pretty big guy. But he has a journal called, let's see, I have it here actually.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. It's called the Podcast Journal, Idea to Launch in 50 Days. Let's see. Honestly, man, it's expensive, but if you bought his book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success, and follow his principles, then you'll have really clarity on where it is that you want to go. Now, with that said, if your goal of this is more as a hobby and you're not looking for revenue streams, and if it's a budget breaker, then definitely don't do it now. But his book is actually the next one I'm going to cover after this one is finished going through. But it is incredibly valuable.